All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. From time to time in Bible classes, I'm asked about certain passages of Paul which seem confusing and perplexing to many women. One who intended to enter the religious science school of ministry here in Los Angeles, which is open to all men and women who are interested and who meet the requirements. It's conducted by Dr. Lowe, Lowe. He's the dean of the college there. Very wonderful teacher. She was told by her father that the Bible was opposed to women ministers. He quoted the following verses from Corinthians. Let your women keep silence in the churches, for it is not permitted unto them to speak, but they are commanded to be under obedience, as also saith the law. If they will learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is a shame for women to speak in the church. That's in the 1 Corinthians 14, chapter 34, 35th verse. This is what the father quoted to the daughter. This literal interpretation of the Bible has kept women in bondage for thousands of years. Her father was taking the Bible literally, but the Bible is a psychological and spiritual drama taking place in the consciousness of man. The Bible is not dealing with doctrinal questions and theological concepts, which are merely created by theologians out of their own mentality. The word church in the Bible does not refer to a building or a religious sect or denomination. The word church means ecclesia, or a calling out or drawing forth the wisdom, truth, and beauty from your subjective depths. It could be called an aggregation of spiritual ideas in your own mentality. To enter the church or ecclesia of God, you must adopt a new mental attitude and realize that God is spirit and that you're one with that spirit. Many men have read the Bible in the letter, forgetting the spirit or the real inner meaning. Their different interpretations of the scriptures, together with their promulgation of certain creeds and dogmas, are the main cause of the countless sectarian groups or churches of today. The writer would like to emphasize that the true church is within yourself and is not made of creeds, rituals, forms, or ceremonies, nor is it contained in marble structures or those of wood and stone. Your own heart, your subjective self, is the temple of the living God, because the I am, or the presence of God, dwells in your subjective depths, and the Spirit of truth in you will guide you into all truth. There's only one truth, not two, 3, or 1,000, just one. There's only one power. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one Lord, one presence, and one power, not 2 or 3 or 1,000. Turn to the Spirit within which is God, and ask for light and inspiration, and all the different creeds and dogmas will vanish. You will then find the true church within yourself, the presence of God. Men and women in the Bible refer to the interaction of your conscious and subconscious mind. They don't wear pants or dress in the Bible. They represent union of your conscious and subconscious mind. We're all male and female. Woman means your subconscious mind, where the infinite intelligence and boundless wisdom of God abide. Emerson says the infinite lies stretched in smiling repose. In other words, God lies in your subjective depths. When you pray for inspiration and guidance or are seeking light on some subject, naturally you remain silent, still, and receptive. By lowly listening, you shall hear the whisper of the gods, Emerson says. As you know, the nature of infinite intelligence is responsiveness, and you use your conscious mind to carry out the guidance and inspiration which comes from within. This procedure has nothing to do with sex, or whether you are male or female. In other words, the Bible is not referring to sex, but to gender. Everyone is male and female, in the sense that every person has a conscious and a subconscious mind. That's simple. When you pray for another, you realize, as Paul says, God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all the churches of the saints. First chapter of Corinthians. A saint, biblically speaking, is any person who's dedicated to God and eternal principles of life. To pray scientifically for another person, you quiet the mind, remain still and passive. You don't try to make something come to pass. You seek results, which you don't try and coerce the subconscious to obey your decrees. Your subconscious responds to your convictions regarding the infinite healing presence within you. In the prayer process, you don't dwell on symptoms, aches, or pains. Neither do you say, John or Mary is getting better now. His nerves are calmer. His heart is normal. These are suggestions, but not a real silent realization. For example, if you're praying for Mary Jones, affirm, Mary Jones is known in divine mind. God indwells her, and his river of peace saturates her mind. His love fills her soul. God is, and his presence flows through her, vitalizing, healing, restoring her to wholeness and perfection. I give thanks for the healing power of God taking place now. In this prayer process, you identified with the divine presence in Mary, and you claim that what is true of God is true of her. After your silent spiritual treatment, if you felt an inner sense of peace or satisfaction, or if you felt that is the best you could do for the present, dismiss the matter until you feel led to pray again. The next time you pray for her should be as if you had not prayed before. If after the first time you prayed you said, "This will do until I get back to it again," you would stultify your prayer. Each time you pray for Mary, you are reinforcing the idea of vitality, wholeness, and perfection for her. Gradually or immediately, as the case may be, the idea of perfect wholeness and vitality will be resurrected in Mary. When you relax and let go and enter into a psychic passive state, your conscious mind is partially submerged and you are in rapport subjectively with Mary. And what you feel is true of Mary will be felt by her. When you prayed, you were the silent one in your own church, knowing that God is the author of peace and health, not sickness or confusion. Your subconscious does not speak or articulate like your conscious mind. Your conscious mind dwells on wholeness, beauty, perfection, and decrees joy and vitality. There is a response from the subconscious according to the belief and conviction of the conscious mind. This is why it is written, for it is not permitted unto them to speak. It has nothing to do with women as such. Your subconscious speaks in symbols, allegories, dreams, and visions of the night. Your conscious mind may interpret and become the spokesman for your subconscious mind. Aaron and Moses represent your conscious and subconscious mind. Aaron was the spokesman for Moses, and you're told Moses had an impediment in his speech. In other words, your subconscious mind doesn't speak to you like your conscious mind does. You receive intuition, answers to your prayer that come in dreams and visions of the night, allegories, symbols, perhaps the numbers, and cryptograms. That's the way your subconscious generally speaks to you. And therefore, Aaron is the spokesman. Your conscious mind interprets or carries out the dictates of the subconscious mind. For thy maker is thy husband, in 54th chapter of Isaiah. When therefore Paul says, if they will learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home. But thy maker is thy husband. God is your husband. The answer is obvious. You're to turn to the infinite intelligence within you for guidance, right action, inspiration, and direction. You're not to impregnate yourself with the negative thoughts, fears, and false beliefs of the world, but rather enthrone godlike ideas and eternal verities in your conscious mind. As you busy your mind with these constructive thought patterns and eternal verities, your subconscious will respond accordingly. This applies to you regardless of your sex status. And that's why your maker is your husband. God's ideas, the truths of God, should impregnate the subconscious and not the false beliefs of the world. After the above explanation to the woman at the opening of our talk, she rejected completely the false interpretation given to the Bible by her father and decided to become a minister. Paul says, "Who also hath made us able ministers of the New Testament, not of the letter of the law, but of the Spirit. For the letter killeth, but the Spirit giveth life." That's the 2 Corinthians 3rd to 6th verse. In other words, you must get the inner meaning of it. The Bible is now being taught from the standpoint of its spiritual or esoteric meaning, and women are gaining their freedom from the false and ignorant interpretation of the Scriptures. Another question I am frequently asked is why in many parts of the world, even today, women wear veils. This form of apparel is, of course, gradually dying out as more and more women are standing up for their rights, prerogatives, and privileges. Men and women are equal in the eyes of God. Male and female created he then. First chapter of Genesis. That applies to everybody. The greatest degree of freedom for women is in our own country, the United States. And complete emancipation spiritually, mentally, physically, and financially is already on the horizon. Woman represents the subjective side of life, which is invisible and covered by the objective side of life. The veil is symbolic of that truth. It is sad, but true, that religion and superstition have been the prime offenders in advising people to belabor their bodies with all kinds of stern austerities for no good purpose. In ancient times, many religious devotees practiced flagellation, privation, and starvation, which were forms of mental and physical debauchery. Many of these religious devotees maltreated their bodies so much that they actually ruined them for the remainder of their lives. It is said that Saint Francis spent the last year of his life in a deep childish melancholy. "Because," said he, "I brought this body to this pass. Because I have beaten my brother," he meant his body, "too hard." This doesn't make you spiritual, of course. By austerities, rigidities, or by beating your body, or starving yourself. That doesn't make you spiritual. You become spiritual by the contemplation of the truths of God from the highest standpoint. It is true that down through the ages, man in his ignorance has taken advantage of a woman's biological handicap. She gave birth to children and devoted many years in bringing up the children to where they could be independent and support themselves. During all this time, she's been under a physical handicap, and man has taken advantage of that for his own aggrandizement and to make her an inferior. Many religions misread and misinterpret the allegory of the Garden of Eden in order to justify keeping women in subjection. "And thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee." That's in 3rd chapter of Genesis, 16th verse. It is absolutely stupid to take this literally. It is true psychologically, as previously explained, because your conscious mind controls your subconscious. Your conscious mind rules your subconscious. Your subconscious is amenable suggestion, and it's amenable and subservient to the suggestions of your conscious mind, which anyone can demonstrate under hypnosis. In the early days of Christianity, there was held a council of the church fathers in Alexandria. The purpose of this meeting was to decide whether women really possessed a soul or not. Lo and behold, they voted on the matter, and the conclusion was that she had by a majority of 1. I told this to my secretary, Mrs. Wright, and she said that was a close call. We're now beginning to have women ministers in the Protestant churches, but since the early days, Athenaeus Parkus Quimby, 1847 onward, we've had women ministers in unity, religious science, science of mind, divine science, church of truth, and all branches of the New Thought field. Women, of course, predominate in the New Thought field. Recently, women priests have been ordained in the Episcopal Church. It is only a question of time until we have women priests and bishops in the Roman Catholic Church. It is also, quite possibly, at some time in the future, to have a woman pope or also a woman as president of the United States. There were many famous abbesses, superiors in a convent of nuns in the Middle Ages, who had their own establishments, who were illumined and inspired, and who became so outstandingly brilliant that they far outshone the men of that day. The men became frightened and nipped their distinguished and illustrious spiritual careers in the bud. These abbesses were distinguished scholars and outstanding executives also, and their male colleagues decided to clip their wings. If these men had known the truth, they would have rejoiced and been exceedingly glad that members of their religious order had moved onward, upward, and Godward. To inhibit and block another is to place blocks in your own progress and advancement. Zoologists and naturalists inform us that there is no animal living under instinct dominating a female, though there are a few instances where the female dominates the male. Down through the ages, man has dominated the female through the misuse of his mind, and he has exploited the female of the species because of her biological role in life. Allegories can be read at different levels, like dreams. Many have more than one interpretation. Adam and Eve represent your conscious and subconscious mind, the male and female. Adam represents every man. The serpent that tempts you represents your five senses, which deceive you and trick you at times, and perhaps tempt you or try to dissuade you from turning away from the belief in one power. You must not be governed by your five senses, however, which consists of sundry concepts, good and bad. Five-sense knowledge is not sufficient to govern your life, for then you become impregnated with all sorts of false knowledge, fears, doubts, and negative suggestions of all kinds. There are several levels to the Garden of Eden story, but actually, you are the Garden of Eden yourself. The four rivers represent your spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical natures. They also represent an allegory of your body, representing the four fluid systems of your body: the cerebrospinal system, the sympathetic nervous system, the bloodstream or circulatory system, and the intestinal tract. The flora and fauna of the garden, the plant and animal life, represent the flora and fauna of your body, the flora, the vegetation of the body, and the fauna, the cells of your body. This garden is tenanted by a man and woman, your conscious and subconscious mind. The allegory of the Garden of Eden is concerned with gender, not sex. It deals with the relationship of the male and female principle in all of us, namely, the conscious and subconscious mind. Eve, the subconscious, was taken from Adam's rib while he slept. This, of course, is all psychological. One way of looking at this is that during sleep, the subconscious mind controls and emerges. The rib basket protects all the vital organs of your body. One meaning of the rib is the natural symbol of the preservative and protective nature of your subconscious mind. For your ribs protect all the vital organs of your body. It is merely an allegory. During sleep, answers come in your dreams. Oftentimes, the full solution to a perplexing problem is given to you when you're asleep. Years ago, I used to see the questions to an examination in chemistry and pharmacology before the examination took place. Your subconscious controls all the vital processes while you sleep. The rib also means a structural idea or plan in your mind, and as you emotionalize the idea and become enthusiastic about it, you're calling forth Eve, the subjective or emotional, which is the creative medium. Emotion follows the thought, the idea, the invention in your mind. This is why in some countries in the Far East, the woman follows the man. He goes first, and she follows with a load on her head or back. He takes it easy. They take these things literally, of course, which is absurd. This is the curse of literalism. It is said that a curse was pronounced upon Eve for listening to the serpent, and Eve was made subject to her husband. The subconscious is subject to the husband, conscious mind, not only for good, but for evil too. It is foolish to listen to the serpent, which means, in simple language, the false beliefs of the world, the 5 sins propaganda. The serpent is another name for the life principle, or God, only it means God upside down, a morbid, twisted, distorted concept of life, God, and the universe. For there's only one power. When you use the power constructively, harmoniously, and peacefully, people call it God, Allah, Brahma, health, and happiness. When you use that power ignorantly, stupidly, maliciously, people call it the Satan, the liar in wait, the devil, insanity, fear, ignorance, superstition, sickness, and all that. There's only one power. How do you use it? So good and evil are in your own mind, in the movement of your own thought. If you visit someone with cancer, are you bothered by the thought that you may get in? Where is the tempter? In your own mind. Slay the negative thought. Cremate it at once and affirm, Spirit in me is God. It is the ever-living one, the all-wise one. It can't be hurt, can't get sick. It's omnipotent and supreme. This attitude will protect you. An allegory is a representation of the spiritual meaning through concrete or material forms. It is a figurative treatment of one subject under the guise of another. When I was a boy, I asked the priest at my church where the Garden of Eden was. He said it was between the Tigris and Euphrates, and to ask no more questions. If a thing is true, there is a way in which it is true. There is no such garden any place, and there never was an actual Garden of Eden, and the 2 trees are within yourself. It is true psychologically. All of us have received instructions and ideas, both good and bad, false and true. When we were young and impressionable, our minds, being malleable, accepted them. Like seeds, these ideas grew up in us and became fixed states of mind. Some of them became phobias and fixations. Perhaps some were based on fear and prejudices. Others, perhaps, on the golden rule, honesty, integrity, goodwill, and so on. So the tree of good and evil, therefore, is within yourself. Fixed beliefs, the golden rule is good, and that God is going to punish you, or that you're a sinner in the hands of an angry God, that's a false belief. So people have grown up with these false beliefs, you see, but the tree of life is there, which is the presence of God in you. Our religious beliefs were given to us when young, and like fruit on a tree, we bear fruit according to the beliefs implanted in our subconscious mind. The religious wars of today bear bad fruit from the tree of life within ourselves. All seeds grow after their kind. The tree of good and evil is our own mind, believing in good and evil, which is the cause of the troubles of the world. There is only one power, not 2, 3, or 1,000. Recently, I conducted a class on the inner meaning of the book of Romans, which was very well received. A young medical doctor who was present said she would appreciate the psychological and spiritual meaning of the following verses from Paul, which troubled her. Every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, dishonoreth his head, but every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered, dishonoreth her head. For that is even all one, as if she were shaven. For if the woman be not covered, let her also be shorn. But if it be a shame for a woman to be shorn or shaven, let her be covered. For a man indeed ought not to cover his head, forasmuch as he is in the image and glory of God, but the woman is the glory of the man. For the man is not of the woman, but the woman of the man. Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. For this cause ought the woman to have power on her head because of the angels. That's the 1 Corinthians, 11th chapter, 4th to the 10th verse. These verses of Paul deal with the interaction of the male and female principle within all of us. Your subconscious is the womb, is the female aspect. Paul, the woman, should be subject to the man in everything. That's true psychologically. Surely you don't take it literally. The subconscious does serve man faithfully, gives form to what is impressed upon it. Whatever ideas are emotionalized and felt as true are impressed in the subconscious. Whatever is impressed in the subconscious, good or bad, it brings forth as form, as function, experience, and event. The subconscious does not respond to mental coercion or force or compulsion. It responds to your persuasion, to your feeling, to your love nature, to your emotional nature. Your subconscious will accept whatever you predominantly accept and believe in your conscious mind. It accepts your convictions. It accepts what you really believe in your conscious reasoning mind. Your subconscious will bring it forth. The husband is head of the wife, you're told in Ephesians. Not true of men and women in their earthly relationship, but it is true of the conscious and subconscious mind, the male and female aspect within everybody. Paul said, "He that loveth his wife loveth himself, and they two shall become one flesh." That's the mystery of your own consciousness, the male and female principle within yourself. For when your conscious and subconscious agree on anything, your prayer is always answered. Two shall agree as touching on anything on earth that shall be established with my Father which is in heaven. So if your conscious and subconscious agree in harmony and prosperity and success and achievement, then it must come to pass because you're operating a law. For there is no quarrel in your conscious or subconscious mind, and your prayer will be answered. The conscious mind is the male aspect, and it dominates the subconscious of the female. Assume the feeling of being what you long to be, and you'll become it. Walk in the light, that it is so. So Paul is talking about the interaction of the male and female principle. In those days, there were no such terms as conscious or subconscious mind, or objective mind, or subjective mind. These are of recent vintage, you know. When these two phases of the mind work harmoniously and peacefully and in unison and accord, the issue from this union results in health, wealth, happiness, and true expression. And the cause of all the misery and suffering in the world is the inharmonious interaction of the male and female principle within men and women. Therefore, contemplate whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are just, and whatsoever things are lovely and of good report. Think on these things all day long. There are some churches in Europe and South America, as well as other places, that still insist today that women cover their heads before entering the cathedral. However, the custom is dying out to a great extent. Some years ago, a group of us visited some of the famous cathedrals in Italy and France. Some women from America had to put on something on their heads in order to enter, or a handkerchief, sometimes a glove. It wasn't always a hat. One woman used a piece of newspaper. This is the old custom or tradition handed down for generations. The marriage in the Bible is the union of your thought and emotion. When these two unite and are constructive, there is an issue from this union. If your thoughts are godlike, your emotions being generated from your thought, your heart will then be a chalice for God's love. The real marriage in the Bible is your sense of oneness with God. From that union come forth all the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, abundance, security, happiness, and vitality. Paul is speaking about the subjective side of our nature, which is called woman in the Bible. A man or a woman is not to be looked upon just as a body. You are a mental and spiritual being. Your body is a vehicle and is the representation of your thoughts, feelings, imaginations, and beliefs. Spirit, consciousness, awareness, the I am, the life principle, is the reality of each person. It's called the living Spirit Almighty. When you say I am, you're announcing the presence and power of God within yourself. It's a nameless name. It means being, life, awareness. Paul is always talking about spiritual laws and truths of life. He's not talking about men and women as such. Paul knew the workings of the mind and was well acquainted with what we call abnormal psychology today. For about 300 years, the teachers and leaders of early Christianity performed great things, including miraculous healings. They were on fire with the truth. All of you know the history of the great Roman Emperor Constantine, who came along and organized the early church into a vast organization, establishing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and doctrinal regulations, dogmas, and tenets to be believed in. It grew on the outside, but began to die slowly on the inside. And this is true of all the religions of the world. These men forgot the real source of all blessings and bounty and looked to form, ceremony, structures, and the hierarchy, worshiping the creator thing rather than the creator. Always look to your own divine center for the light and true wisdom. If any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth to all liberally, and upbraideth not. Every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, dishonoreth his head. All this, of course, is psychological. Man means mind, your conscious reasoning mind, your thought, your intellect. Your thought is incipient action. Man's head should be uncovered in the sense that his imagination should be disciplined and controlled along spiritual lines. His mind should be free from fear, arrogance, pride, and strife. Spiritual reasoning should be enthroned, and thoughts of peace, harmony, right action, and goodwill should dominate his conscious mind. Paul says a woman should have her head covered, for he says it is a shame for a woman's hair to be shorn or shaved. Let her be covered. We are told that Samson's strength was in his hair. Hair represents thoughts and emanations of divine energy, your mental patterns and attitudes. You're not to take it literally. This is why man's hair is cut short. This should not be taken literally, as it has nothing to do with actual physical hair on the top of your head. Man trims or cuts off the hair, meaning he gets rid of all resentment, antagonism, arrogance, and pride, prejudices, and hostility. By identifying with divine love, the spirit of forgiveness, and exalting God in the midst of him, then his head, our conscious mind, is truly uncovered, because he's removed all the false beliefs, all the arrogance and pride, and he's ready for prayer. He's humble before the infinite. He's ready for meditation and spiritual growth. Looking at it symbolically and from a spiritual standpoint, long hair on a man would indicate a growth of false concepts and erroneous opinions, accompanied by negative emotions, intellectual pride, and conceit of the know-it-all attitude. Mrs. Margaret Burroughs, who does some extra work for me occasionally, asked me why it was that women through the ages were looked upon as chattels, inferior to man and subservient. She mentioned, for example, that one of her female antecedents in the old country in Europe would leave the room whenever a man came to visit her husband. As previously explained, the subconscious is subservient to the conscious mind of the man. The male, the conscious mind, intellect, is dominant. This is why the woman, when she prays, should have a cover. That is why the woman should realize the divine presence is within, and she should be covered with the garment of faith and confidence, veneration, adoration. All that means is that your conscious mind should be the guardian at the threshold and should see to it that nothing enters into your subconscious that does not fill your soul with joy, with faith, with confidence, vitality, and enthusiasm. If you see a builder laying bricks and one brick is underneath the other, both bricks are the same and of equal importance. That might apply to the home that you're building yourself. The brick underneath is in an inferior position, not, however, inferior in usefulness and importance to the structure of building. One brick is inferior in placement or in position. That is all. It's just as important as the other. This is the same as your subconscious mind, called the woman in the Bible. Your conscious mind controls and dominates your subconscious, but the two are essential, and the latter is amenable to suggestions and the habitual thinking and imagery of your conscious mind. Your subconscious responds to the dominant thought of your conscious mind. When your thought or idea is emotionalized, it is subjectified. Your subconscious, being creative, then causes the manifestation to take place. Which of you, by taking thought, can add 1 cubit unto his stature? 6th chapter of Matthew. To cube it in the Bible means to mother it, to emotionalize your idea, to nourish it and animate it, so that it will gel and become impressed in the subconscious and come to pass. For any idea felt as true is always subjectified and comes to pass. One of our radio listeners, who has a secretarial position with the government and is about to retire shortly, wrote me and said she heard me say on my daily radio broadcast that if you pictured yourself on board a plane or a ship and felt the reality of it, for example, if you want a voyage on a ship, you should picture the event here and now and feel yourself as now, sitting on deck, looking at the stars, listening to the creaking of the planks in the ship, smelling the briny ocean, feeling the ocean breeze in your face, and looking at the vast deep. By dwelling on the scene and making it so vivid and real that when you opened your eyes after the meditation period, you were actually amazed that you're not on the ship. Your feeling was so real that it is a sure sign that you have fixed it in your subconscious and it will come to pass. Even though you do not have the money to take the trip, if you succeed in impregnating your subconscious, it will surely come to pass in ways you've known about. Accordingly, she followed the technique when on the 3rd night fell asleep, affirming trip, trip, trip. She awakened the next morning and had no further desire to pray about it because she had succeeded in fixing the idea in her subconscious mind. The sequel was interesting. She is retiring in a few months, and her supervisor proposed marriage. The first thing he said to her is, after the marriage, we are taking a trip around the world. Her prayer was answered, and she's taking the trip that she had imagined and felt to be true. This is what the Bible means by cubing your thought, our mental image, mothering it, for it is the mother that gives birth to the child, not the man. She began to think about the trip, got maps of foreign countries, and then getting interested in visiting all the foreign ports. She engaged the power of her subconscious mind because she evoked the feeling, the interest, the enthusiasm. Then the subjective mind brought it to pass in its own way. The woman in you always represents your emotion, your feeling nature, your subjectivity. The man gets engaged to a woman, and if he serves successfully, loves her, cares for her, and tells her how wonderful she is, and remains faithful to her, gradually it consummates into a marriage. Prayer is the same thing as wooing a girl, telling her how much you love her, how much you care for her, giving her presents and exalting her, and wishing her well, and the apple of your eye, so to speak. All right, you're nourishing it, sustaining it, and you're loving it. They're the idea in your mind. Gradually, it will sink into your subconscious by osmosis, and it will die like a seed. You're married to it, aren't you? From that issue comes forth the answer to your prayer. So the ancients taught the prayer process to be very similar to a boy courting a girl, remaining faithful to her, and then to consummate into a marriage. Your subconscious mind does not choose your thoughts. Your conscious mind is the choosing volitional mind. This is why the subconscious mind can be polluted by an ignorant, tyrannical, despotic, egotistic, and autocratic conscious mind. When the conscious mind entertains gangsters, assassins, and marauders in the form of evil, hostile, hateful, and vengeful thoughts, these pollute and befoul the subconscious and bring forth all manner of diseases and disorders of the mind, of the body, and the business. This type of conscious mind can be in every person, irrespective and regardless of sex. To indulge in resentment or to desire to get even causes your subconscious to respond in a negative and destructive manner. Modern research by psychosomatic doctors point out that they have found destructive emotions behind cancer cases. In an article on prevention in the magazine for Better Health, the January 76 issue, Dr. Carol Simonton, a specialist in oncology, the science of tumors, states as follows: some personality characteristics of the cancer patient that other scientists have identified as significantly different than non-cancer patients are: 1, a tendency to harbor resentment and an impairment in his ability to express hostility, a tendency towards self-pity, difficulty in developing and maintaining meaningful long-term relationship, a poor self-image. In addition, a sense of basic rejection, either by one or both of his parents, consequently develops the life history pattern seen so commonly in the cancer patients. Dr. Simonton points out in the above quotation from his article that negative destructive emotions can bring about destructive diseases in the human body. This is why the Bible says the woman's head, your subconscious, should be governed by divine ideas, mothered by divine love. This is why your head should be covered. This is the government of the free. It guarantees peace, security, health, and abundance. Well, in Corinthians, Paul says, the woman, your subconscious, should always be watched over and protected by your conscious mind. The woman is the glory of man. The word glory comes from gloriae, that is, whatever thoughts are true, lovely, noble, and godlike. Re means light, and glow means warmth and love. And when you meditate, or when you're focused on that which is true, which is lovely, noble, and godlike, you will find that they will find their way by a process of spiritual osmosis into your subconscious mind and shed their glow, warmth, and light on all your undertakings. If you do not govern, control, and direct your emotional life, you will respond to all the sundry negative thoughts, fears, and predictions of gloom and doom which bombard us night and day. Then these irrational emotions will impel and propel you into negative actions and reactions. In biblical language, you're committing adultery when you cohabit with evil, hate, jealousy, resentment, hostility, or ill will in the bed of your mind. To do so is to spawn an evil progeny. The woman's hair is not shorn or shaven because hair, being symbolic of thought, emanations of goodwill, should be protected at all times by the truths of God and watched over by the overshadowing presence of a God of love, enthroned and dominant in the conscious mind. Man's hair, symbolically speaking, should be shorn, as previously explained, in the sense that his intellect should be anointed with the wisdom of God, and his contemplation should be on the truths of God from the highest standpoint. Down through the ages, men have worn hair, long and short, but the Bible is talking about your thought life, your mental patterns, the vibrations that emanate from you, and focused attention. Long hair, symbolically and biblically speaking, would be wrong for a man, as it would indicate that he was governed not by spiritual reasoning, but by negative emotions and the mass mind. A woman's hair, Paul says, should not be shorn, which in the psychological and spiritual sense means that her mind is not at peace, and that she does not have God or God-like thoughts or ideas as her husband. In other words, ignorance, fear, and superstition are governing her, and she's not clothed with the garment of salvation and the robe of righteousness. The woman who's uncovered, therefore, in the light of the Bible and its inner meaning, becomes unstable, neurotic, and subject to every wind that blows. Needless to say, whichever you are, a man or a woman, you do not take the subject of the hair literally. A man with long or short hair may be a godlike man. The trouble is not in his hair or head, but the way in which he uses the laws of mind and the way of the Spirit. The answer to all problems is to keep your attention on God and all things good. Then you are prophesying for yourself a wonderful future for which your eyes stayed on God. There is no evil, we're told, on your pathway. You're told in the Bible, she was found with child of the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost means the Holy Spirit, or God, which is lodged in the unconscious depths of all men. Joseph is your choosing volitional or conscious mind. Mary represents your deeper mind, full of the qualities, attributes, and potencies of God. Within your subconscious is the I am, the superconscious. Emerson called the oversoul, the divine presence within you. Joseph, the conscious mind, should be a guide and protector for the Holy Child. Which child, of course, is your awareness of the presence and power of God within you. When you become aware of the divine presence within you, the I am, the presence of God in you, that's called a child in the Bible. The spiritual idea, you're awakening to that power and presence within you. Your thought is Joseph, and your feeling or emotion is Mary. When these two unite in peace and harmony, your prayer is answered. That's called God in action. That's the Trinity. Your conscious and subconscious unite on anything. There's a child or a you or an expression, a son, which is the son bearing witness of the father and mother. In other words, the answer to your prayer bears witness to the union of your conscious and subconscious mind. This is the way your mind works. Knowledge of this is the birth of the Holy Child or wisdom in you. Practice a harmonious, synchronous, and joyous relationship between your conscious and subconscious mind, and you will bring forth health, peace, strength, and security. Enthrone the right idea in your mind. Then you will experience in your heart the true feeling. The union of your thought and feeling represents the married pair in you. When they are fused, the third element, peace, God, enters in, and you experience the joy of the answered prayer. Let your heart become a chalice for God's love and a manger for his birth. As a result, you will express and bring forth a child, which is God or good on the earth. Earth means your body, your environment, all phases of your life. Your conscious mind, called the husband, is the motor. The subconscious could be looked upon as the engine. You must start the motor, and the engine will do the work. The conscious mind is the dynamo that awakens the power of the subconscious. The first step in conveying your clarified desire, idea, or image to the deeper mind is to relax, immobilize the attention, get still and quiet. This quiet, relaxed, peaceful attitude of mind prevents extraneous matter and false ideas from interfering with your mental absorption of your ideal. Furthermore, in the quiet, passive, receptive attitude of mind, effort is reduced to a minimum. For example, if you wish to sell a home, in private consultation with real estate brokers, I have told them of a simple procedure. I placed a sign in the garden in the front of my home one time, which read, "For sale by owner." The second day after placing the sign, I said to myself as I was going to sleep, "Supposing you sold the house, what would you do?" I answered my own question, and I said I would take that sign down and throw it in the garage. In my imagination, I took hold of the sign, pulled it up from the ground, placed it on my shoulders, went to the garage and threw it on the floor, saying jokingly to the sign, "I don't need you anymore." All this was in my imagination, called the workshop of God. I felt the inner satisfaction of it all, realizing it was finished. The next day, a man gave me a deposit for the home, said, "Take your sign down. We will go into escrow now." Immediately, I pulled the sign up and took it into the garage. The outer action conformed to the inner. There is nothing new about this. As within, so without. Meaning, according to the image impressed on the subconscious mind, so is it on the objective screen of your life. There is a wonderful power within you. It's the subjective power. Become convinced now that there is a power within you capable of bringing what you imagine and feel as true into manifestation. Sitting idly by, daydreaming and imagining the things you would like to possess will not attract them to you. You must know and believe that you are operating a law of mind. Become convinced of your God-given power to use your mind constructively to bring into manifestation the thing you desire. Know what you want. The subconscious mind will carry out the idea. That's the woman in you. That's the creative power. It's called the mother. It's called the womb. It's called the wife. It's called by many names, but it is the creative power. You have a definite, clear-cut concept of what you wish to possess. Imagine clearly the fulfillment of your desire. Then you're giving the subconscious something definite to act upon. The subconscious mind is the film upon which the picture is impressed. The subconscious develops the picture, sends it back to you in a material, objectified form. The camera is you consciously imagining the realization of your desire through focused attention. As you do this in a relaxed, happy mood, the picture is cast on the sensitive film of the subconscious mind. You need also a time exposure, maybe 2 or 3 minutes or longer, depending on your temperament, feeling, and understanding. The important thing to remember is that it is not so much the time as the quality of your mind or thinking, your degree of feeling or faith. Generally speaking, the more focused and absorbed your attention is, and the longer the time, the more perfect will be the answer to your prayer. Believe that you have received and you shall receive all things whatsoever you shall ask in prayer. Believe that you receive them and you shall receive. To believe is to live in the state of being it, to be alive to the truths of God, to accept something as true, or to live in the state of being it. As you sustain your mood, your feeling, you will experience the joy of the answered prayer. Accept the fact that you have an inner creative power. Let it be a positive conviction. This infinite power is responsive and reactive to your thought. To know, understand, and apply this principle causes doubt, fear, and worry to gradually disappear. The deeper mind, remember, is responsive to your thought. The deeper mind reproduces your habitual thinking and imagery 24 hours a day. That's the meaning of "let us make man after our image and after our likeness." Let us bring forth all manifestation. That is, your conscious and subconscious mind will bring forth all manifestation based upon your habitual thinking and imagery. For the life principles flow through that matrix or that mold of your habitual thoughts and imagery. So, the subconscious, called the subjective or deeper mind, sets in operation its unconscious intelligence, which attracts to you the conditions necessary for your success. Man should make it a special point to do the thing he loves to do. And if you're wondering what that is, realize there's an infinite intelligence within you that knows only the answer. And say, "Infinite intelligence reveals to me my true place in life, where I am doing what I love to do, divinely happy, divinely prospered, and I follow the lead which comes clearly into my conscious reasoning mind." As you do this, the answer will come clearly.